the United States wants to end this war, it'll be over in 24 hours.
So if United States would like to have a peace, next morning there is a peace. Because it's obvious that the Ukrainians, the poor Ukrainians on their own, they are not competitive in this war. So if there is no money and there is no equipment from the West and especially from the United States, the war is over. The solution is in your hand. It's in the hand of your president. The present one or the future one. But you will solve it. The United States can do it, nobody else. It's not the solution for the Ukrainians. Of course, it's about Ukrainians. They cannot be neglected. They must be involved. But the real factor is not Ukraine. The real factor is intention of the United States.
I think he's right?
Well, he's right. The real problem here is that the Ukrainian war should not be looked at exclusively as a Ukrainian thing. The West is in there, the U.S. is in there to weaken Russia, to give Russia a strategic defeat. Those are the words of the President of the United States.
Right.
Hello? Right. So, the next morning it would be over. Orban is completely right. Now the problem is, and Larry is quite right about conventional warfare. Russia's going to win hands down. What will these crazy people, not so much crazy, but Blinken, Sullivan, Hunter, and his daddy, what are they going to do when it looks like they're really going to lose this thing and it's an election year, and my God, if their competitor comes into office, they're going to go to jail. What I'm saying here is
Joe needs an off-ramp, whether they freeze the conflict and he just declares victory, we stop them from going to Kyiv or some nonsense like that the American public might buy, or whether we just continue to use Ukraine as a battering ram. Joe needs some kind of handle on this to sell, I think, to the American people if he's going to run for re-election, right?
Well, what I'm going to say here is pretty frightening.
Go ahead.
It does have an off-ramp, okay? When he ran out of shells for the 155 millimeter howitzers and other things, they looked around, they found, cluster munitions. They're going to run out of them. And then what are these guys going to do? They're going to look on the top shelf there. Oh, they're under lock and key. Those are the mini nukes.
Ooh.
Now, there is a realistic possibility, because they're going to lose badly. They're going to lose badly before the election. There is a possibility that because of this extra personal incentive to stay out of jail if Trump comes in, they would be sorely tempted to use just these little, half the size of Hiroshima, for God's sake. And that's what Putin and his generals have to be afraid of. It doesn't matter what I'm afraid of. It matters what they're afraid of. They have to count that in now. The evidence is mounting against all these guys. They could end up in jail, and they know it.
Larry, how dangerous is this scenario? Well, how realistic, and then how dangerous is this scenario that our friend Ray has just painted?
Well, the United States has very few options when it comes to a military response in Ukraine. Well, we don't have a lot of troops deployed, so in order to assemble a force that might represent a significant threat to Russia, it's going to take 6 months at least to round them up, put them on ships, and send them overseas. But once that starts, Russia could then start sinking those vessels. The thing that the United States has failed to calculate is that because of George W. Bush and his decision to walk away from the anti-ballistic missile treaty, Russia has developed robust, effective ballistic missile defenses. What that means is that they have a realistic chance of defeating any nuclear weapon launched by the United States. Not 100%, but they have a far greater than 80% chance of surviving that. The United States has zero capability to defeat such ballistic missiles. So in the event it comes to this escalation, Russia could be damaged and would suffer, maybe millions of casualties, but would survive. The United States would not survive. The United States would be erased.
And you both believe that this catastrophe, this Holocaust, could come about because we aided Ukraine in this war and enabled them to slaughter Russian boys. Wow. Here's Viktor Orban. It's the last one we'll run, but it's profound, saying essentially what the two of you have said, not with respect to this being escalated to nuclear war, but with it being obvious who's winning and who's losing, no matter what the Western media or how the Western media wants to portray this.
In the United States, the view is that Ukraine is winning this war. It doesn't sound like that's true.
It's a lie. It's not just a misunderstanding. It's a lie. It's impossible. Everybody who's in politics and understands the logic, the figures, the data, no way.
Why is it impossible?
Because that way, the poor Ukrainians die every day.
Yes.
Hundreds and thousands, So my heart is with them. It's tragedy for Ukraine. But they will run out earlier from the number of soldiers, than the Russians. What finally will count is boots on the ground. And the Russians are far stronger, far numerous, more numerous.
There's more
than
of them.
Ukrainians.
Many more.
So this strategy what we are just supporting is a bad engineering of the strategy.
Wait, is anybody else in NATO? Hungary's in NATO, Larry. Does anybody else in NATO, head of the government in NATO, say anything like that?
No. I mean, I applaud Orban for, again, he's got a grasp on reality. What is truly shocking is how many of the European leaders and here in the United States are completely out of touch. They have embraced lies that are verifiable lies. Insist that Russia is poorly trained, poorly led, has poor morale, that it's dragoon conscripts, whereas Ukraine is great, terrific leadership, great morale, and is not suffering many casualties at all. You reach a point where words cannot capture this kind of delusion.
Larry, Ray, are there agents in the CIA who largely agree with what Viktor Orban just said? And can their message make it to the White House? Or are we beating a dead horse here?
Well, we're beating a dead horse, Judge. What we have in the CIA is a residue of the malleable managers that were appointed by Bill Casey and Bobby Gates. They, in turn, appointed malleable managers in their image. And what you have is the head of the CIA telling the president a month ago, Mr. President, not only has Russia already lost, but the incompetence of the Russian military has been laid bare for the whole world to see. I mean, what la-la land does Bill Burns now inhabit? He's become a cog in the propaganda wheel of our government, and I hate to see that happen to the CIA, particularly its director.
Wow.